On today's episode, we are revealing to you how we got interview connections to generate $500,000 in 1 month. So we have lots of lessons learned for you. We're going to reveal the good, the bad, and the ugly and share it in a way that you can apply in your own business and have some big breakthroughs as well.
Yes. So this was really exciting. So when I came on to Interview Connections in 2017, as the first employee, we ended the year at, I believe, like $433,000 in annual revenue for that year. And, we grew, we hit the 7-figure mark, multi-7. This year we ended just over 3 million. And our goal for the past 2 years has been to have a 500K month. And when I set that goal, I really thought it would be maybe like 6 months to hit it, maybe like a year, but I really was thinking months. And then for 2 years, so 24 months, we set that goal every single month and we failed to hit that goal every single month. And because of all of that failing to hit the goal and still going for it, we learned so much. And then December 2021, last month of the year, we closed it out at, I believe, 589.
Yes.
So
589K.
So we not only broke through 500, but really got really close to 6. And the highest month we'd ever had before that was like 366, I think. So it was a huge leap. We hit our goal. It was an incredible moment for the team. And it was so valuable too. And I think the timing, while for tax is not good, for reflection, the timing of it happening right at the end of the year was really, really cool because we had an opportunity to look back and really reflect on what we learned. And so that's what we're going to distill down for you today. Number one, the first thing that I learned, and this was humbling as someone who identifies as kind of like the typical CEO, entrepreneur, visionary, your vision is not enough. And this was surprising to me, right? Because for a while you grow your company and you are the visionary. You are the one who is like, I see where we're going. I see what we need to do to get there. So you're setting these big goals that are your vision. And then you have a team of people who are implementing, who are helping the company get to the goal that you set. And this worked really well for our company until we hit about $2 million in annual revenue. And entrepreneurs out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. There's this notorious plateau at $2 million or $2.5 million that people had warned us about, right? But at the time I was like, high quality problems. I'd love to be stuck at 2 million in revenue. But when we actually did get stuck, I couldn't figure it out. And we tried a lot of things. We changed a lot of things. And yes, like your systems and all that stuff needs to be upgraded once you're at 2 million and you're going into multi-7 and 8 figures. But what I really realized was that it was a leadership problem. And specifically, I believe that 2 million in annual revenue, which is, I think, about 167,000 per month in revenue, is about how far one person or a handful of people's vision can go. After that, it really needs to be a team effort. And we have over 20 full-time employees. And it wasn't enough that just me and Jess and a few leaders and a few salespeople were going for this goal. We realized that we needed it to be a company vision. We needed it to be truly collaborative and have every person in the company, regardless of what their position was and whether they were involved in sales, going for this goal, visualizing this goal, tapping into and speaking about what it would mean for them personally and for the company to hit this goal. And that really caused an energetic shift.
Yeah. And also, there were moments along the way where I wasn't even bought into the 500K goal, and I think the most pivotal moment was the infamous Memorial Day weekend. It was the last weekend of May, and it was actually our prior best month ever. And I was like hustling and following up and doing all the sales work. And it was like, 5 o'clock on Friday, the whole team had checked out, right? It's a holiday weekend. The last day of the month was, I think, that like Sunday or Monday. And I am just like, I'm not working this weekend. If no one else is, I'm not. And I remember you and I like had this conversation and you kind of called me out on like, if you're not going to do everything it takes, you're not really bought in on this goal. And I was confronted with, do I really want to hit 500K if I'm not willing to work the extra 2-3 days of the month to hit it? And at that moment, I was like, no, like I had this story that meeting this goal was going to mean I was spending less time with my family. I was doing all the work. I had to take it all on myself because yes, I had a small sales team, but they weren't really developed to the point where they were closing a ton of sales. And so I was like, basically F this, like, I don't know. And so I don't know if you want to share your perspective for that story.
Yeah, I think that conversation and conversations like that are really important because it's really important when a goal is set to really get honest about, because it's one thing to say, we're going for it, I'm all in. And all in is one of our company values. So nobody wants to not be all in. Everybody's like, I'm all in, I'm all in. But it's important to ask people and to keep the conversation going because all in is not a box that you check. Are you all in? And there's a lot of energetic stuff when you go for a really big goal, especially when you feel like Jess did at that time, that it was so much on her shoulders as really the muscle of the sales team. It's important to check in. Where are you energetically? Are you all in? Or are you saying you're all in because you feel like you have to, but actually there's some internal stuff that needs to be addressed and completed and cleared in order to really go for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was at that time that we kind of reassessed because we were setting the 500K goal, but previously we had set like, okay, we're going to do 500 and then we're going to do 6. So we were actually looking at this spreadsheet that said our goal at that time was like 600,000, but we hadn't yet even really hit 400,000. And so I remember the two of us sat down and like together listed out like some baseline, like budget level, like here's what we need to do. And 500K is still like that goal that we're going for. And that really helped a lot.
Yeah. And it's buy-in is not a one and done. Again, not a box that you check. You need to be consistently talking to your team and figuring out where they're at. And if they're really invested, is this their vision too, not just your vision? You can only drag people so far with your vision before they're going to mutiny because it's annoying, right? You need to actually do the work of seeing if they're engaged and enrolled. And if they're not, what's it going to take to get them there? And it's worth slowing down. For me, it's hard to slow down sometimes because I'm like, we're doing this. This is a vision. It's going to happen. And I just wanted to sprint. And I didn't realize that what actually needed to happen was slowing down and looking at the engagement and buy-in of all the people in the team, not just me. Humbling, which is kind of the theme of this episode.
Yes.
All right. The second thing, if what you're doing isn't working, don't just do it harder. So this is really true of this $2 million plateau, because to get from 400,000 in 2017 to then the next year we doubled to like 800. And then the next year we broke 7 figures. It sort of was just doing it harder. Like there wasn't, yes, we made a lot of changes to like, the structure of our offerings and the value, and we made it better all the time. There was constant improvement and shifts, but we were sort of just doing more of what we had already been doing to hit those goals. And it's very confronting when that doesn't work anymore. And it took an embarrassingly long time for me to realize that, because it wasn't working. Like we set the goal 2 years ago, and a year in, if I had been really honest with myself, I probably could have seen this isn't working. Like what we're doing is not going to hit this goal, and trying to push people to just do it harder and go for it. Like that's not going to work. We actually had to stop and reassess and do things differently than how we had been doing it to hit the goal. And it sounds so obvious, but when you're in it, it's not obvious, right? You're just like, I want to do this, so I'm going to push harder. But when the results are showing month after month that pushing harder is not getting you any closer to your goal and is probably getting you further away, if it's burning you out and burning out your team, how do you make the space to stop and reassess and change the quality of what you're doing in the way that you're doing it? All right. The third one, and this is really related to the second one. So if it's not working, don't just do it harder. So hitting big goals through multiplication, not addition. That was really, I think, one of the biggest pieces that shifted in order to help us hit this goal. And I saw that what I was doing wasn't working because, yes, there was sales, right? There was a sales issue. There was all of that stuff, but those were really symptoms of my bad leadership. Not bad, but like it wasn't as good as it could have been. And all of those things were symptoms of that. But I was trying to address those things rather than going to the center, which was the leadership. So I'm looking at, well, we're not hitting the sales goals. Like, how do we sell more? How do we get more leads? How do we do this? And that stuff didn't work. That tactical strategy didn't work because it was a much deeper issue that had to do with leadership and with the way that we were thinking about hitting these numbers and growth. And very much before that point, we had been growing through addition. We're adding clients, we're adding team members, we're adding clients, we're adding team members. And when we hit that plateau around 2 million, the realization was that we have to move from addition to multiplication because we have these team members, but instead of looking at, okay, we're getting 50% out of our team in terms of their brilliance and their ideas and their creativity that they could contribute to the business, how do we get 100% out of the team we already have rather than just hiring more and adding more people that we're only getting 50% out of? And I want to clarify, I'm not talking about getting more out of your people by loading them up with more work and more clients and more hours. And that's what I thought it meant. When people first started saying, well, based on your payroll, based on your numbers, you need to get more out of your people, I would get so frustrated because I was like, they're working really hard and they're already getting kind of burnt out. Like they're really like, they're doing such a great job. They're trying so hard. I don't see how I could get more out of them because I was thinking of it as put more on their plate. But when I realized and made that shift and I read a bunch of leadership books, we started learning about Scrum and Agile. I read the book Multipliers, which I highly recommend. I realized, oh, this is what we're doing wrong. We had inadvertently, because we were trying to be good leaders, been bad leaders. We had diminished our team. We had done too much talking, too much telling the team what to do rather than creating space to get their ideas, to get their input on how we could hit the goal. And when we created that space for the team to share from people from all different departments to give ideas for how we could hit the goal, we realized that our people, our resources that we had already been investing in had incredible ideas that we had been missing out on. We had not been getting the full value of our team's incredible creativity and intelligence and problem-solving ability because we hadn't created that space. So by mentally shifting from the idea of addition, of we just need to add more clients, add more team, add more clients, add more team, to multiplication, how can we actually get more out of the team that we have, out of what we're already investing in? And how do we engage the entire company in a way that is moving the business forward? And once we started asking questions like that, the shifts happened so fast and we're truly like quantum leaps.
Yeah. Yeah. And specifically another example was, early 2021. So 2020 was the first year that we started hiring salespeople. And we had, 2 salespeople for much of 2021. One of those didn't work out. Then we added a couple more. And then one of them, it was just sort of like, okay, we're figuring things out. And then in 2021, we had lost all the salespeople from 2020. And then in 2021, within the first 2 months, we hired 5 salespeople. And we were like, this is a big investment, but this is going to make us so rich. We have so many salespeople now. They all had sales experience. It felt like we had figured it out. Well, that was a basically cut to 6 months of a lot of crying, a lot of stress, a lot of chaos. It was insane. And yeah, we learned that we didn't need to add tons of full-time sales reps. Now, that's not to say that over time you don't want to grow a sales team, but we realized there were so many team members we already had on staff who could contribute to sales, multiply what we already have versus adding in more full-time sales reps.
Yeah, I think people limit themselves, especially people with bigger teams like we do, to departments, right? Like that's not this person's role. And I think when you're really rigid about roles, you miss out on using people's best abilities and having them be able to be engaged in work that's exciting for them and that they actually love. The other part of multiplication and leadership being a core issue is culture. And when you create the space for others on the team to contribute and problem solve and lead, there's a huge shift to the culture. And really looking at the culture of the sales team and sales and marketing was really important because we saw, there's so many more people who are actually part of the sales initiative than we had initially thought. So bringing them all together, first of all, that just created more of a culture because there was more people, there was more perspectives, there was more energy. And then really being intentional about asking questions, having people lead, empowering people to get better all the time and to know how appreciated they were. The shifts in the culture made it so much stronger. And I think we had a big cultural issue when we brought on a bunch of salespeople, but we had no culture for the sales department and they were very isolated from the rest of the company. That was a lot of why we saw the turnover that we did and the lack of success. We hadn't cultivated an environment for them to succeed.
Lesson number 4 and how we got to our 500K month is you as a business owner have to lead by example and do the work you're training other people to do. One of the biggest pitfalls that I see I saw in myself, and then also when I'm talking to entrepreneur friends that are like, just kind of commiserating around like, how are you doing this? Stuff like that. It's that the business owner isn't willing to like get down and do the work that you're hiring somebody to do. So just to give a specific example, we do a lot of live launches, our podcast guesting masterclass. And in a live launch, there's a lot of work that has to be done. You have, hundreds, sometimes thousands of leads. You need to qualify all those leads. You need to direct message those leads. You need to, there is a lot of work, and that's how it leads to, successful sales conversions. And I remember it was in the summer of 2020, we had those first 2 salespeople. And I was like, okay, like they're trained, like they know how to DM, they know what they're doing. And literally I remember going to the beach that Saturday of our open cart. And I'm like, I have made it. I have salespeople that are doing the DMing. This is great. And then, cut to us really not meeting the goal and being like, oh crap. I thought I was done doing the DMing, so there were a lot of like the, as you say, Margie, like the pendulum swings. I think now is a good time to kind of talk about that. Do you want to kind of explain that concept?
Yes. And that leads very into another thing. So yeah, and this is something a lot of leaders, well-meaning leaders do, but it causes whiplash for your team because you delegate too fast. And then you come in when there's a big issue and then you get really, really involved. And then you come out again. In the book Multipliers, I think it's called bungee jumping leaders. They're like in and then they're gone. And then they're in and they're gone. And it's so inconsistent and it's tough for the team. So it is a balance. We're not saying you have to get in there and do all the work as a business owner and not utilize the people that you've hired. We're not giving you that advice, but it's important to have that flexibility. And I think Jess embodies this really well. It's all about flexibility. The same thing with people. Well, that's not their role. They can't help with this. It's not their role. Well, if they're great at it and they have great ideas, like how can we be flexible? Because the business suffers if you're so rigid with roles that you're not willing to let someone with incredible ideas and skill impact a part of the business that maybe isn't their department. Or if you as a business owner are like, I'm not going to do this because this is below me. And of course, you don't have to do it forever. But if you have the flexibility to understand what needs to be done, and if it's something that you're the best person to do, or you're the one who's available, being humble enough to jump in there and get it done, and it really get like down and dirty sometimes, that's how you achieve these big goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, there's shows like Undercover Boss. I don't know if that's the best example, but it's like, sometimes the boss has to be the one to like take the trash out. Like you have to be humble enough to just do the work that needs to get done. And that was one of the biggest things that held us back was, and we'll talk about ego in a little bit, but it was like that ego of like, I have hired people to do this. I shouldn't have to do it myself. Like if I'm truly a successful business owner, growing to 8 figures, I shouldn't also be like DMing leads on a Saturday night. Like it felt like this is beneath me, but it takes, you have to be humble, and you just have to do the work that it takes. Like it is not like growing a business and hitting these big goals. It often looks glamorous from like social media because we like, typically like you're posting your best pictures and you're posting your inspirational quotes and all of this. But actually what it takes is like just doing the stuff that has to get done.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. And this leads really well into number 5, which is sort of the Goldilocks principle of continuing to assess and reassess what you should be doing, where you should be getting really involved, where you should be getting less involved. And it's like Jess is saying, it can be such a pendulum of like, okay, I'm super, super involved in micromanaging. And now, okay, I'm overwhelmed. So I'm going to totally pull out. I'm not even going to check what people are doing. And then the results get pretty inconsistent. So I had a similar experience of having to keep evaluating how involved I should be. And before in our launches, we both are on camera teaching. But in our first launch, we both were in the DMs because we didn't have any social sellers. So Jess was doing the sales calls, but we had split the list of people in half during the masterclass. So we would be live on camera. And then till 9 p.m. every night, we would both be in our little blue blocking glasses on our laptops, DMing people. And that launch went very well. But as we brought on salespeople and as Jess and I really looked at how do we find our lanes and stay in our own lanes, right? Because our business does have 2 owners, but it doesn't work to have 2 people doing the same job because that gets chaotic for you and for your team. So in our attempt to create lanes, we looked at people's skills and, where they were needed. And Jess had done the sales and marketing for the business since the very beginning of the business, was very good at it. And I was more interested in like strategy and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, sales and marketing is going to be Jess's domain. And my domain is like the other stuff, the finance and the strategy. And I had to really get honest with myself that I needed as the CEO to be more involved. Like I had gone too far away in this effort to not step on Jess's toes and to have this rigid structure. And this is a theme that keeps coming up, sort of this lack of flexibility of that's not my lane. I would kind of bungee in and out, but I wasn't able to really get a clear picture of what was going on because I wasn't consistently in the sales team every single day. So getting, an overview once a week is not going to give you the type of information likely that you need to effectively lead and restructure and create strategy to hit such a big goal if you're looking to grow that fast. So there was kind of a Goldilocks moment of me figuring out, okay, this is too involved. Like when I was in the DMs, I was like, okay, this probably isn't the best use of like my zone of genius to be in the DMs, although it was very fun. And then I came really far out of it. And then, I was frustrated with the results of the sales team, but I also had nothing to do with it. I didn't even know how to contribute ideas and strategy because I just didn't have the clarity. I didn't really know what was happening. And then I got more involved in the sales team. So in September, I started, and everybody knows I hate meetings. Well, Jess knows. I feel sometimes very constricted when I add recurring meetings to my schedule, especially first thing. And I consider first thing in the morning, 10 a.m. And I consider 4 p.m. the dead of night. I eat dinner very early. So it felt constricting. Like when I first tried on this idea before I said anything to Jess, I was like, honestly, it'd probably be a good idea. They have a daily sales meeting every morning. If I really want to get in there and understand what's going on and be able to contribute, I should probably be on all those meetings. And I had this moment of like panic of I'm going to overcommit and go crazy and hate this, or I'm going to be like totally stepping on Jess's toes and it's going to cause friction. But I did end up doing that. And it was really cool. And I was able to actually understand everything that was going on. And then I wasn't just bungee jumping in with strategy that was out of context. I was able to fully see what was going on, to have clarity, and then to be able to contribute with leadership and strategy and everything like that, and work with the team in ways that helped us become more effective. So I think it's important to constantly evaluate and reevaluate. Am I too involved in this, or am I not involved enough? And there are seasons. It's not always going to be the same answer. So really thinking critically about that all the time and reassessing is really important. And it was flexibility in the end that I needed to say, to go from this isn't my lane to, my skills could be helpful here. And this is really important to the business. One of the most important things in the business right now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'll just share, because I think, you learn from people's failures way more than their successes. So I feel called to share this story. So, before Margie was really involved in like coming to all the sales meetings there, as she said, there was this frustration of like not really knowing what was going on. At the same time, I was not tracking the data very well. Like I was really dropping the ball, because I was also like doing it. Like I was sending the DMs and like doing calls and like doing trainings. I'm like, I don't have time to also be like managing all these like metrics. And like, I don't even know how to do that. I don't build spreadsheets. So there were moments of Margie saying to me, like, you're like, you lead the sales team, you're accountable for these results. And I'm like, I don't know how to do it. Like, it was crazy. It was not easy. And so it really did take Margie just kind of like, parachuting in and like staying for a while to really contribute that leadership, because I was just like, I don't know how to give you the information you need to lead this strategy while I'm also doing it. Like it was just hands up in the air. So September comes, Margie's in the sales meetings. And that is really like her involvement there is what had us make the biggest quantum leaps, because we didn't hit, 589K by like steadily climbing there. Like it was like $100,000 to $300,000 months. And then we leapt up to 589K in December. And, one of my biggest lessons is, as a business owner, you have to have humility and put your ego aside when you realize the way you're leading something isn't working, because sales and marketing, it is my lane. It has been my lane, but also the way I was leading it wasn't working. Like it wasn't going to get us there. And so I had to, and there were definitely moments, the way I explained it to Margie, which I was like, well, we're not men, but it was like emasculating to have her come in and lead the department when I had been leading it. Cause I like had to, start saying like, Margie wants us to do this. And I'm like, but I'm equal co-owner. Like there was like, I really had to put the greater good of the business in front of my ego and being like the founder and the business owner and all of that. And that's just so important. And I think that's what holds a lot of business owners back from success, is feeling like you have to be the hero, feeling like if you're not the reason a goal gets hit, then are you good enough? Because also what came up for me in the weeks leading up to hitting the goal was, as we got really, really close, oh my gosh, I had these immense feelings of I'm not good enough. And oh my God, if we were failing for the majority of me really leading the strategy, then like, what does that mean about who I am as an entrepreneur? Like all this triggers were coming up. And I want to share that really openly, because I don't want any of you listening to feel alone if you're experiencing that head trash, because it truly is what happens when you break through to a new level.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing so authentically, because I totally agree. Sharing the behind the scenes and not just the highlight reel is so important. And I think that shows true leadership in being able to do that. Also, I feel like another theme of this episode is Margie's kind of scary. So please don't be alarmed, anyone.
No comment. All right. It takes a balance. It takes two people.
Good cop, bad cop.
I know. I lead the wins and learn section of the morning meeting.
Yeah.
I keep it
the fun one.
I'm the fun mom.
Yes. I'm the intense one.
Okay. All right. Lesson number 7, restructure what you're already doing for a bigger impact. So this is very similar to multiplication, not addition there. And I'll just give one quick example. In our live launches, we were doing client testimonials. You know, that if you do live launches, you know, a big part of them is sharing client testimonials, sharing client success stories. And launch after launch, it was this big headache for us, for our team to ask all these clients, do testimonials, schedule them out. Some people wouldn't show up. We're scheduling them on Facebook Live, trying to get people to watch. We know we have to leverage social proof and testimonials to drive sales in our launches, but oh my gosh, this doesn't feel like it's really working. So we shifted to doing our launches on Zoom. I think it's September. So we stopped doing them in the Facebook group. We still leverage Facebook, but that's honestly a conversation for another episode. We started doing them on Zoom. And I'm like, if we want people to really watch these testimonials, they can't be at this other random time that people aren't planning on going. Like if we're just like, 3 p.m. on Thursday when the sessions are at noon, we're going to get no viewers. And these testimonials are a huge part of having people want to work with us. So we made session 4 of our launch, not just testimonials, but we gave it a really compelling title. And I facilitate a panel, I handpick 4 to 6 clients who have had great results, who from a variety of different businesses and, have a variety of different results. And I facilitate a panel discussion. And it's made such a big difference because not only is that session really high value because all the clients are now sharing advice for all these people in the masterclass, but they're also, singing our praises and saying that this is a really great investment to make. So just not it wasn't the answer. The answer wasn't to cut the testimonials, but restructure how we're utilizing testimonials. So just look at what you're doing. If it feels like it's not working, how can you restructure it to have a bigger impact?
Yeah, that is such a great point. And it's not necessarily changing everything that you're doing to hit your goals if you're not hitting them, but really looking at each thing and how could we multiply the impact of that? The testimonials is a great example. Another place where we've applied that is meetings and one-on-ones. So you're already having this time, everyone who has direct reports has a one-on-one with their direct reports every single week. So looking at, we're not adding more meetings, but how can you make that meeting that you already have, that time you're already spending, more valuable? How can you multiply that? And that's so valuable in every part of your business to look at what are you doing that you don't want to cut, you don't want to stop doing it, but how could you make it more effective and leverage it more? And that is such a game changer. And it's so fun because it's not more work. It's not adding new things. It's doing the things you're already doing more effectively.
Yeah. Number 8, persistence. Honestly, we've listed some of our top lessons out. We could probably talk for hours and hours on the different lessons learned and looking back on the mistakes we've made and the things that worked. But at the end of the day, meeting a big goal like this, it takes persistence. There's so many times where it would have been easier to give up and say, you know what, this is too hard. Let's just go for 400K. We actually never had a goal for 400K. It was 200 or 500, but just sticking with it and being persistent and not giving up, I think is probably the biggest lesson, because in the not giving up is when you face all the stuff that is able to teach you something. So regardless of what goal you're going for, there are so many lessons that are available to you every single step of the way, and stick with it. Like, no matter how long it takes, if you have set a big goal for yourself and it's taking a long time to get there, trust the process, stay the course, cry the cries, and really, really focus on the journey and observe what that journey is there to teach you.